as I drive up through France from the Riviera to the centre of France near Lyon. Literally thousands of views and comments on last episode's mentions of Keir Starmer, and also about the film Three Women. Keep going, keep commenting, keep viewing. Something I've noticed driving up through France from the bottom to the top, which I find absolutely fascinating, is that I have seen no GB or British lorries or trucks. Absolutely none on the motorways. Hundreds of others from Belgium, Luxembourg, Germany, Ukraine, all sorts of places. Hundreds. Not a single one from the GB. That's mainly the south to the middle and the middle of France. I don't know about the bit going to the north. I'll find that out later on. But it did fascinate me, and it shows how stupid Brexit, which was stupid in the first place and only appealed to people who were either racist or closet racists, or those who fell for a simple slogan, which, let's face it, the majority do these days, because most of you are brain dead. But how it could affect trade so much is ridiculous, and that's one thing that Starmer and his Labour government could actually sort out. Get us back into the common market. Okay, we can't rejoin the EU, that would be ridiculous, but I think there must be a way of opening trade up again so that essentially we are part of the common market, as I suspect things like places like Norway and Switzerland are. Yes, I'm a Remainer, and I'm also in favour of opening all borders, if only to save the lives of so many people who tried to come to this country. I wrote this song about 10 years ago, and it was recorded by a young lady called Solo.
The last thing I remember under beloved homeland sky were the screams of my grandmother as she watched her husband die. When we fled the house we lived in since the day that I was born, and we crawled away to safety with our best clothes ripped and torn. I prayed to God alone in my head. I swore a vow with sweat and said, let us find sanctuary, food and a bed. Hell is when you're homeless, I'd rather be dead. There must be a place of safety for the whole of the human race, where your religion doesn't matter or the color of your face, where the people care for children, that they don't just starve and die, where they see and stop the suffering, where they hear the babies cry. I prayed to God alone in my head. I swore whispered and said, let us find sanctuary, food and a bed. Hell is when you're homeless. I'd rather be dead. I know that it's not easy, and the sacrifice is hard, to go without yourself when you can say not in my backyard. But killers, disease and poverty are big enemies to defeat. It takes love and courage and kindness to protect the small and the weak. I pray to God alone in my head. I swore a vow and whispered and said, let us find sanctuary, food and a bed. Hell is when you're homeless. I'd rather be dead. I pray to God alone in my head. I swore a vow and whispered and said, let us find sanctuary, food and a bed. Hell is when you're homeless. I'd rather be dead. When you're homeless, I'd rather be dead.
Something else I've noticed as I drive along the motorways at about 150 kilometers per hour in my Rolls Royce. The only cars that tend to overtake me these days are either Mercedes-Benz or Citroens. In the old days, there used to be Lamborghinis or Maseratis or Ferraris. You never see any of them these days. There don't seem to be that many electric cars on the motorways. I rather suspect because the electric cars can only do a limited amount of kilometres before needing charging up again, which is interesting. There are now quite a few electric charge stations at the stops where I am at the moment on the motorways, but isn't it interesting? That's the way things seem to have gone. Listening to a lot of French radio as I drive along and getting different stations, different places, the only Justin Bieber song I really liked was You Can Go and Love Yourself, which I always thought was originally written as You Can Go and Fuck Yourself. Now I discover indeed it was, and clearly he made two versions, and the original was Fuck Yourself, whereas the Love Yourself was for radio and playable. But what's interesting is here in France, they play the Fuck Yourself version. And that interests me because clearly in countries where English is not the number one language, fuck is not in any way considered something that you shouldn't say. This is the Chateau de Bagnols, which Tom Cruise described after staying here for a week or two, the most beautiful hotel in the world. As a result, they've named the swimming pool after him, the Tom Cruise Pool. Built in the year 1217, I spent most of my time looking around. The walls, indeed 4 foot thick, are still the original 1217 walls, but there's also a lot of original furniture in there, which is fascinating and old. Hello!
Hello!
As a honeybee, but like a honeybee stings, you're gonna let my heart in pain. All you left is our favorite song, the one we dance to all night long. It used to bring sweet memories of a tender love that used to be. Now it's the same old song, but with a different meaning since you've been gone. It's the same old song, but with a different meaning since you've been gone. Sentimental fool am I to hear an old love song and wanna cry, but the melody keeps a haunting love him forever, darling, ever and ever. It's the same old song, but with a different meaning since you've been gone. It's the same old song, but with a different meaning since you've been gone. Precious memories keep on lingering on. Every time I hear our favorite song, now you're gone. In this emptiness, I only reminisce the happiness we missed. We used to dance to the music, we danced to the music, and romance to the music, romance to the music. It's the same old song, but with a different meaning since you've been gone, girl. It's the same old song, but with a different meaning since you've been gone. The same old song, but with a different meaning since you've been gone. It's the same old song, my girl, but with a different meaning since you've been gone. It's the same old song.
It is gorgeous here as I cross the drawbridge and go to the restaurant to eat. Thinking more about the Brexit situation and my theories on politics, I thought far and away the best kind of government we've had in the UK in the last 20 years, this century in fact, was the coalition. Because the stupid Tories with their extreme right-wing views, like Labour with their extreme left-wing views, were tampered down by the very intelligent Lib Dems who tend to be in the middle. And as a result, things like Brexit could never have happened. However, David Cameron, who I thought was quite a decent Prime Minister, made two terrible mistakes. The first one was destroying the Lib Dems in the election after the coalition. It made sense if you look at it on an entirely political way, getting the Conservatives in charge. But it made no sense at all when you consider he had as his deputy Nick Clegg, who I thought was excellent, along with other great Liberal Democrats like Vince Cable, who I thought was terrific. He had his Chancellor, George Osborne, who I thought was a pretty good Chancellor. Together, they made a very good governing party, but by allowing the Conservatives to wipe out the Lib Dems and therefore do without them, what Cameron opened the door to was the loonies in his party, the extreme right-wingers and the bonkers lot who thought Brexit would be a very good idea, and indeed forced him to have a referendum, second terrible mistake by David Cameron, and as a result we had stupid Brexit. Not that Brexit was that stupid, but the changing horses in midstream, being in the EU and then getting out of it was really stupid and caused the most incredible amount of problems and difficulties. So I think had actually Cameron allowed the Lib Dems to continue, the coalition to continue, he probably would still be Prime Minister, and we would never have had the problems we had with COVID, for example, and all the other stupid things that the British government has been responsible for. But even more than that, I suspect when he left as Prime Minister, the next Prime Minister would have been Nick Clegg with Cameron's full approval. And I think we would have gone on with a coalition, this time led by a Lib Dem guy, but again with all the best people in government. And that would happen now. In 2024, we would probably have Prime Minister Nick Clegg doing a damn good job and no sign of that ghastly man, Keir Starmer. Of course, we've had the Olympics for the last couple of weeks, which I've been glued to, and I have to say, Great Britain has done fantastically well for the tiny country it is, and we've not done it through specialising in just a couple of areas, which is how most of the smaller countries get their medals, but we've done it right across the board. And I've got to say, I've been fascinated by an awful lot of odd sports I never thought I'd get into. Badminton, I found myself glued to it and rooting for the lovely South Korean girl who did actually get the gold. It really has been very, very good. But one thing has struck me which is really, really disturbing. And that is, why wasn't Russia in it? Russia should be in the Olympics just as it should have been in Eurovision, just as Novak Djokovic, well done with the gold by the way, Novak, should not have been barred from being in the Australian Open and the American Open because he refused to take the vaccine. I'm pro-vax, by the way, but I also feel it should be down to individuals and should not interfere with such things as sports and music and entertainment and everything else. These countries may be at war with each other and we may back one side rather than the other, but for God's sakes, when it starts influencing involvement in other things, it is ridiculous, and nobody can justify why Israel, who are behaving just as badly as Russia, but depends which side you're on, whether you believe it's right to kill thousands, tens of thousands of innocent Palestinians in Gaza, and wrong to kill a few hundred Ukrainians. It's down to you which side you're on. I'm on neither side. I think they're all awful. But either way, it should not get involved with things like sports, entertainment, music, and all the other areas. That's my two penneth worth. It's interesting to notice how much of the original 1217, 800 years ago, chateau or castle remains. The outer walls, which are incredibly thick, about 3 or 4 feet thick, remain, but the renovation has been excellent. I spent most of the days here examining all the various refurbishments and working out which are original antiques and which actually are clever renovations and some not so good renovations. Of course, the peace and quiet of the chateau are rather disguised by the fact that centuries ago there were riots and revolutions here in France. As I eat my delicious Michelin-starred breakfast and look at the beautiful chateau, it is a reminder that back in England there are riots going on and anti-riots going on and long sentences for rioters and the usual inflation of everything by social media and the mass media, all of which has to inflate and exaggerate, so they make things like the riots important, like they did with COVID and Brexit and so on, all of which were not important, were just trivial incidents in the history of humanity and should have been dealt with in a similar kind of way. But of course that is not a good story. All the riots were basically children using the part of their character, which a few children have, of wanting to be violent and smash things up and tear the wings off flies, including a few child-brained adults who also go along and use the excuses of being far right or far left or pro-racism or anti-racism or whatever. None of it has anything to do with the reality, which is just people kicking off and thinking they can get away with things that they should not be allowed to get away with and mostly don't get away with ultimately. Anyway, I'm just going on, making the new film, Three Women. If you're a regular subscriber and a believer in A Victim Bites Back, I would urge you please to take a look at it. It's exclusive preview on the Victim Bites Back sites, ranging from YouTube and Instagram, TikTok and Twitter and all the others, to the dedicated site. Take a look at it and see what you think. I've been making films for some time now. Me, 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 the movie, was a great success for a while. So was Vile Pervert, the musical, my original film. Watch it and see what you think. Looking back on the Olympics, 3 things strike me. 1, how incredibly well Britain did compared to the population of our tiny little island. Only Japan, which has double the population, did as well against the giant population and size nations of America and China. Secondly, we had some great golds and some wonderful silvers and bronzes, all of which did spectacularly well, but particularly Toby Roberts on the climbing. What a sensation he was. And thirdly, this boxing scandal about Iman. Now, I'm a big fan, as you know, of North Africa and the Arab cultures of North Africa. This woman, who is clearly a woman, it appears absolutely certain she has a womb and no penis. A man has a penis, a woman has a womb, and if you have neither or both, you are a hermaphrodite. Hermaphrodites are words. A hermaphrodite is a word that has existed since the 13th century and was abolished in the year 2006, apparently, according to Wikipedia, who you never can trust. But it's a useful word, and I would urge you to watch my film, which is exclusively available to those who are supporters of A Victim Bites Back. If you want to check it out on YouTube and on the dedicated site, that's 3 women, and we touch on the entire issue of male, female genders and hermaphrodites. And so I come to the end of my 2024 annual Grand Tour, in which I take my car and drive all the way down from London to the deepest south of Morocco and then back slowly but surely to Great Britain, where I put the car on the train underneath the English Channel, the Eurotunnel, and we head back to Great Britain. I need to know whether you want me to continue with these A Victim Bites Back shows. It's now episode number 94. I intend to go on to episode 100, one way or the other. But it all depends whether you want me to continue waffling on and talking about new movies, new TV shows, my opinions on the news, showing you various travel points and other such interesting, I think, aspects of life. It's down to you. Most people tend to watch the show on our dedicated site, www.avictimbitesback.com, but also on all the other sites ranging from TikTok and Reddit and Instagram and everywhere to YouTube. Well, YouTube on the last episode, because it was a really rather controversial topic about whether or not Keir Starmer was going to be arrested and charged for historic sexual offences, as he urged people to do when he was Director of Public Prosecutions, got literally thousands of views all the way across all our channels, but especially on YouTube, where I think it had 10,000 views in 2 or 3 days. If you would like me to continue and are interested in these, please go to YouTube, watch it on YouTube, and make a comment below episode number 95, or even under this one, episode number 94. Otherwise, we'll finish after 100 episodes. See you next episode.